Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first program in the Outlander Highlands to Carolina virtual series. We're so glad that you're here, and we hope you are as excited about this as we are. My name is Heidi, and I'm here with Erin. Hi, Erin, who reminds me that
Hi,
I'm
oh
here.
my God, I'm so excited. Okay.
We are both librarians with the Wake County Public Library System here in the capital county and capital city of the state of North Carolina. Some of you might remember that way back in 2021, we did an Outlander series, and here we are 4 years later with a brand new lineup of programs for you.
We did. And I'm curious, did anyone attend the one 4 years ago? And if you did, do you happen to remember the terrible jokes that Heidi and I told at the beginning of every program?
Erin told.
Okay, that's how we dealt with our nerves. Oh, look, somebody does remember the bad jokes. Excellent.
Okay, well, cool. So we have a large audience tonight, and if my calculations are correct, we have people from 25 countries and 49 US states that have registered for this program. So welcome everyone anywhere you are. So being in North Carolina makes this series feel especially meaningful. As we fans know from book 4 and season 4, the TV show onward, the storyline switches from the Scottish Highlands to North Carolina. So from the fictional Fraser's Ridge in the mountains to the Cape Fear and out to the coast in Wilmington, our state really becomes a character in Diana Gabaldon's beloved saga. So it only feels right that we are going to kick off this series with a program related to North Carolina and Outlander. And matter of fact, this time around, 6 of our 8 programs all deal with North Carolina history, people, places, and culture.
It does. And we are so happy to have y'all here tonight. We do want to take a quick moment to thank everyone who attends programs like these. You keep public libraries relevant and alive, and you allow us to continue this type of programming. A big thank you to the Wake County Public Library System for supporting us in this ridiculously large endeavor. And the biggest of thank yous goes to Karen Henry from the Outlandish Observations blog, who also happens to be a Wake County Library patron, for making the session with Diana Gabaldon happen. We couldn't have done it without you, Chief Bumblebee Herder. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. So we are ready to dive in almost, but before we get going, we've got a little bit of housekeeping so that you know what to expect with this program and the series. And I am turning it over to Erin for that. So Erin, go for it.
I am going somewhere. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to tonight's program. Again, we're really thrilled that you're here. We're also a little nervous, so if I sound out of breath, that's why. We are going to turn off chat really quickly, and boy, do you guys know how to find it and use it, which is wonderful. But we're going to turn it off real quick while I run through some housekeeping items, and then we're going to turn it right back on when Dawn starts her presentation. This is so you can pay attention to what I'm going to tell you next. Our program tonight is 1 hour with maybe time for questions at the end. Honestly, probably not, because you guys, Dawn has an amazing presentation. She's got a lot to cover. So we're going to go up to the hour, maybe a little bit over. Please stick with us if you can. Captions or transcripts from Zoom are available during the program. You can toggle those off and on as you wish using the button on the Zoom toolbar at the bottom of your screen. And Heidi, I don't remember if you or we thanked Bryson and Rebecca, who are behind the scenes in chat right now, putting everything in chat. Did we do that?
We did not, but thank you, Bryson and Rebecca, for handling all the behind the scenes work tonight. We really appreciate it.
Yes, they're also librarians with Wake County Public Libraries, so this is a big group effort. Okay, the program is the kickoff to our Outlander Highlands to Carolina series, and we have so many resources for you. Please visit our webpage that you see on the screen for book lists, videos, information about the presenters and what they're presenting. You can also sign up for the other programs if you haven't done that yet. And so tonight we have a lot of links already prepared for what Dawn will be sharing and discussing. We're going to put those in the post-program email and then also on the website. So we don't want to clutter up chat while you guys are trying to pay attention to what Dawn's talking about. So you're going to get a mess of links and resources after the program. And we are recording this, and you will get the link to the recording in that same post-program email. So here's where I say, mark me. The county is going to do its very best to get the recording available as soon as possible, but please bear with us, especially as we go on in the series, if it takes a little bit longer. The recordings will be posted. We promise you. You'll get information about how to find those in the post-program email. We will also put it on our website. So it will be available, just not the next day. So bear with us. You would be surprised at how much work goes into getting these videos ready for public consumption, and we want them to look good for you. So we really appreciate your understanding and patience with this. Also, if you could repeat all of what I just said to your friends when they're like, hey, where's the recording? We would really appreciate that. Thank you. And then lastly, I don't even need to say this, but hey, chat exists. Please use it once we turn it back on through the program for comments, questions. If you did give us a question in the registration form, you don't need to put that in chat again because we've got you covered. And again, we've got a lot to cover, so we're going to get to as many questions as possible. We may not get to all of them, and we're sorry about that, but we're going to do our best. We also have upcoming programs in this series. You can register for these if you haven't already by going to the address you see at the bottom of the slide. And remember, we'll be sending these out in the post-program email. All the information will be in that. I do want to take a second to say Wake County Public Libraries is doing a quick exit survey that we would love for you to take part in. You can scan the code on your screen or just wait until you get that post-program email because you guessed it. A link to the survey will be in that email. So thank you for your feedback and also your willingness to take like 2 minutes to give us your feedback. Thank you so much for that. And now for the main event. Welcome, Dawn Wu. Dawn is an avid Outlander fan of both the books and the Starz TV series. And that's it. Those are her qualifications. I'm just kidding. Dawn is a member of the admin team for the Outlander-inspired, history-focused organization Outlander North Carolina, which will begin offering tours exploring North Carolina's past in the new year. We will drop a link in chat and the post-program email with more information about those tours. Dawn is also a reenactor with Southeast Civilian Living History, portraying 18th century Carolina backcountry lifeways. So she has a lot of qualifications, and she has a lot of ground to cover tonight. Pun totally intended. So I'm going to end here and say welcome, Dawn. We are so glad you're joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. So I'm going to turn off my camera because y'all probably don't want to see me. You'd rather look at the slides. So let me do that. Okay, there we go. So hello, the house. Like Erin said, I'm Dawn Wu, and I'm your host tonight. I started reading the Outlander books over 20 years ago when my children were little. And, you know, during those naps, you got to have something to do. So that's what I did. It led me to get involved with my ancestry, and I found out that my maternal ancestors were Scots-Irish, and they lived in these North Carolina mountains during the Revolutionary War. So that's kind of how my journey began. So tonight, I'll be taking you across 18th century North Carolina in the footsteps of the Frasers. No standing stones required, no wee gemstone needed, although you might need a journey cake in case you get hungry. Unfortunately, you won't see any of these actual North Carolina historic sites in the TV series because there was no filming in the United States. It was filmed completely in Scotland. So let's begin our journey. First, we're going to visit the coastal region of North Carolina. In the 18th century, this area would be your major cities, major areas of business and trade. There was a question as to whether the places mentioned in the show and the book are real. And yes, the majority of places are real. Diana Gabaldon set her books against history with historical figures and added her fictional characters to it. So Jamie and Claire's first stop in North Carolina is Wilmington in 1767, after they washed ashore in Georgia. In Drums of Autumn, Jamie mentions Wilmington when they are trying to decide how to get Ian back to Scotland. They visit Wilmington on several different occasions. The final resting place for Stephen Bonnet is Wilmington, if you remember. And also Fergus, Marsley, Joan, and Felicity returned to Wilmington to live there. Wilmington is on the southeastern coast of North Carolina between the Atlantic Ocean and the Cape Fear River. Wilmington and Brunswick Town were rival towns for many years due to their ports. Wilmington grew and became the center of trade. Goods and produce were imported inland to the settlers via the Cape Fear River, and so Wilmington is called the port city. The Cape Fear River system is the largest river system in North Carolina. If you visit Wilmington, you might be walking down Market Street. So William Tryon's first residence was in Wilmington until 1770. The marker at the intersection of Market Street and Water Street shows the location of Tryon's first residence with the great view of the Cape Fear River. He certainly had an eye for real estate. You know what they say when building a house: location, location, location. The Burgwyn Wright House is another house you may want to visit. It was built in 1770. It was built on top of the first city jail that was built in 1744. Do you remember the home in Wilmington in Drums of Autumn where Mr. Lillington hosted a party in 1767 and Claire and Jamie are there and Tryon was the honored guest? The Burgwyn Wright House would have been the type of house where a party like that would have been held. The Burgwyn Wright House is open for tours. You don't want to miss Hunter Ingram's program Thursday night, for sure. There is an Outlander walking tour November 14th and 15th, and you will want to check out the Burgwyn Wright website under the podcast tab for their Outlander and the Cape Fear series. It's really good. Also, there is St. James Church. The original church, pictured on the right, was completed in 1770. It's the oldest church in Wilmington. It was demolished in 1839, and the bricks were used to construct the new church. Cornelius Harnett is buried there. Harnett was largely responsible for the establishment of the Halifax Resolves, which gave North Carolina its first in freedom motto. In A Breath of Snow and Ashes, we see Cornelius Harnett at Jocasta's party at River Run in 1774, honoring Flora MacDonald. So speaking of Aunt Jocasta, let's take a trip up the Cape Fear River to visit Aunt Jocasta at River Run. I hope you've been working out because you might just have to help us pole the boat. So Jocasta's plantation is River Run, which is a fictional place. It was near Cross Creek. In Drums of Autumn, we see Jamie, Claire, and Ian traveling on the Cape Fear River to River Run. And if you remember, this is when Bonnet stole Claire's ring. Cross Creek was chartered in 1760, and it was the second largest Cape Fear River town next to Wilmington. Cross Creek was established about a mile from present-day Fayetteville, North Carolina, and Fayetteville was named after the Marquis de Lafayette, who we see in the Outlander books. About 1 mile from Cross Creek was the town of Campbellton. In 1783, the towns of Cross Creek and Campbellton merged to become Fayetteville. So a lot of you ask about the Scottish immigration to North Carolina. In 1739, North Carolina Governor Gabriel Johnson, who was a Scot, encouraged 360 Highland Scots to settle in North Carolina. Most of them were from Argyle. Johnson provided a 10-year tax exemption as incentive and large land grants. Most of those Highlanders settled near Cross Creek. After the Battle of Culloden in 1746, many came due to the Highland clearances and the inability to pay land rents in Scotland. In the 1760s, we see the second wave of Highlanders. About 20,000 Highlanders immigrated to the Upper Cape Fear region in the present-day counties of Cumberland, Harnett, Hoke, and Morris County. So late in the 18th century, a lot of Scots moved to the mountain area to escape the conflict and the British. The Scots-Irish make made up the largest group of settlers in the Carolina backcountry. This marker is in Fayetteville and is believed to be the site where Flora McDonald saw her husband and the troops off to the Battle of Moores Creek. Flora McDonald lived in the barbecue community of Harnett County from 1774 to 1778. While you're in Fayetteville, there are several driving tours that you could take advantage of. The Gallic Beginning Driving Trail, the American Independence Trail, the Lafayette Trail, and the Patriots Past and Present Trail. And you can find all these auto tours on the website visitFayettevilleNC.com. So we're going to head to the town of Edenton now. Let's hope we don't run into Philip Wiley, who owns Wiley's Landing in Edenton. Who can forget seeing that dandy at Mr. Lillington's party in Wilmington? In 1775, in a breath of snow and ashes, Roger travels to Edenton for his ordination. Jamie finds Roger there and tells him about Brianna's abduction. Edenton is North Carolina's second oldest town. It was the capital of North Carolina province from 1722 to 1766. In 1767, the same year as Jamie and Claire came to North Carolina, the town board replaced their wood courthouse with a brick and mortar Georgian-style building, which can be visited today. On October 25th, 1775, something out of the norm happened in Edenton. I know you've heard of the Boston Tea Party, but have you ever heard of the Edenton Tea Party? 51 women, led by Penelope Barker, gathered at the home of Elizabeth King and drew up resolves to stop buying English tea and cloth from Britain. This is the earliest known political action by a group of women in U.S. history. The colonial and British newspapers wrote articles about the Tea Party. Whereas colonial parties praised the women's efforts, British newspapers made fun of the women by using unflattering cartoons like this one to represent the event. You can tour, there's several places that you can tour in Edenton. The 1767 Edenton Courthouse, the 1782 Penelope Barker House, the 1773 James Iredale House, and the 1758 Cupola House. So, who wants to jump in a boat with Stephen Bonnet and visit Ocracoke? It may not sound fun, but by boat is the only way to get there. So let's take a chance and go. Ocracoke is a remote island at the southern end of North Carolina's Outer Banks that even today can only be reached by ferry, private boat, or plane. In a breath of snow and ashes, Wendigo Donner time traveled via the Ocracoke stones. And in August 1775, Stephen Bonnet kidnaps Brianna and takes her to Ocracoke. In Echo in the Bone in 1776, the Frasers returned to Ocracoke. This is in the books, to Ocracoke, so Roger, Bree, Jim, and Mandy can travel back to 1978. So I hate to disappoint you, but there are no standing stones on Ocracoke. In the 17th and 18th century, Ocracoke was considered a pirate haven. Blackbeard, also known as Edward Teach, was one of Ocracoke's most frequent and notorious visitors in the early 1700s. Stede Bonnet, spelled S-T-E-D-E, Stede Bonnet also considered Ocracoke Island a favorite plundering destination. It's widely speculated that Stede Bonnet was Diana's inspiration for Stephen Bonnet. Present day, Ocracoke Island is a tourist spot with vacation rentals, restaurants, shops, fishing, and boating, and you have to be ferried to the island. Oh no, it looks like Claire has been arrested by Richard Brown and he's taken her to Newbern. I think we need to follow them to make sure Claire is all right. So let's go. In a breath of snow and ashes, Richard Brown takes Claire to Sheriff Tolliver's house after she's accused of murder. The house serves as the location for the women's jail. Newbern is also the location of Fergus's print shop. In A Breath of Snow and Ashes in 1775, Claire is taken from the jail to attend to Governor Martin's wife at Tryon Palace. So New Bern was the capital of North Carolina until 1775. Tryon Palace was constructed between 1767 and 1770. Y'all remember the story, right? Governor Tryon overtaxed the people of the backcountry to build the palace. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But Tryon Palace burned in 1798 and was reconstructed in 1959. Tryon only lived in the palace for 1 year and then went to become governor of New York after the Battle of Alamance. You can visit Tryon Palace today. There is an Outlander in the Palace tour on November 22nd. You might want to take advantage of if you're in the area. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place. So it looks like Governor Martin has lost control of the colony. It's time to get out of New Bern and head to safety in Brunswick Town. In 1775, in A Breath of Snow and Ashes, Governor Martin sent for Claire in the New Bern jail to come and attend his wife at the palace. While there, Martin loses control of the colony and has to flee. He sent his family to New York and he took Claire with him to be his secretary. They stopped at Fort Johnston, where he hatched a plan to arm the enslaved against the colonists. Local patriots found out. This made them mad, and they plotted to kidnap Martin. From Fort Johnston, Martin and Claire flee to Brunswick Town and board the cruiser and dock off of Brunswick, where Claire serves as his secretary. The Patriot militia, led by, again, here we see Cornelius Harnett and John Ash, they burn Fort Johnston as Martin watches from the cruiser. And so just to give you some reference, the distance from Brunswick Town to Fort Johnston is about 20 miles. Fort Johnston is in Southport, North Carolina. Brunswick Town was the first successful European settlement in the Cape Fear. It was a major colonial port in the 18th century prior to Wilmington being a port. It survived 50 years before being burned by the British in the Revolutionary War, and it was never rebuilt. At Brunswick Town historic site, you can see the St. Philip's Church pictured here. It was built between 1754 and 1768. There are foundation ruins of 18th century houses at Brunswick Town. This is another picture of the inside of St. Philip's Church. This right here is the Hepburn Reynolds house. You see where they are cooking in that picture. That is the original hearth stove, and I have cooked on that hearth stove. Russellborough was home to Governor Dobbs and Tryon before it burned. That's Russellborough right there. And also, let's go on to Fort Johnston in Southport. Fort Johnston, it was the British's only garrison fortification in the colonies, which was built in 1744 to defend the Cape Fear region from pirates near the mouth of the Cape Fear. The garrison house of the fort was built in 1810 and is the only remaining building, now part of the Fort Johnston Southport Museum and Visitor Centers, which is right there. The Orton Plantation is next, and it was built in 1725. So the events with Governor Martin and the burning of Fort Johnston roll right into the Battle of Moores Creek. Moores Creek National Battlefield is located 18 miles north of Wilmington in Curry, North Carolina. In February of 1776, in A Breath of Snow and Ashes, Jamie summons the men on the ridge and other rebel forces to go to Wilmington and join rebel militias. Jamie, Roger, and Ian join Lillington's men at the battle. The Battle of Moores Creek Bridge was one of the first battles in the South during the Revolutionary War. It took place on February 27th, 1776. The battle pitted Loyalist troops, the Royal Highland Regiment of Immigrants, led by General Donald McLeod, against Patriot militia led by Colonels Moore, Lillington, and Caswell. Alan McDonald, who was Flora's husband, missed the battle because he was sick in camp. So remember earlier in Fayetteville, we saw the location where Flora bid farewell to the troops going off to the battle. So at the battle, the Loyalists charged. Shots were fired in the misty fog of the morning. When the Loyalists got to the bridge, they found that the Patriot militia had removed the planks and greased the girders. So try to imagine this Loyalist Highland charge. These are men with broadswords. So think Braveheart. These are big, heavy, two-handed swords, and they're using the sword to balance at this point, trying to get across the bridge, which has no planks, and the railings are greased. The battle lasted only about 180 seconds and marked the last broadsword charge by Scottish Highlanders. The battle ended Governor Martin's plan for a Southern campaign. It boosted the Patriot cause, bolstered recruitment of militia, and encouraged the passage of the Halifax Resolves at the Fourth Provincial Congress. You can tour Moores Creek National Battlefield. The remnants remain of the 1776 road traveled by both forces. There's a trail with exhibits and the historic bridge, and there's also a visitor center. So February 27th, 2026 marks the 250th anniversary of the battle. So Moores Creek National Battlefield is planning events for February 26th through 28th to commemorate the 250th. We're going to wander around the Great Dismal Swamp for a bit, but we're not going to stay there as long as William did. And we're definitely not going to get lost. In 1777, in Echo in the Bone, William wanders around the Great Dismal on a mission to find George Washington and company at Dismaltown. While he's lost, William finds Lake Drummond. He also gets injured in the Great Dismal, and Ian saves him. The Great Dismal Swamp Wildlife Refuge is the largest intact remnant of a habitat that once covered 1 million acres in southeast Virginia and northeast North Carolina. The Great Dismal was inhabited for several thousand years, although conditions were very harsh. In 1650, the Algonquian speaking native tribes lived there. Remember, William thinks that Ian is Algonquian because the language doesn't sound right. In 1728, William Byrd, a surveyor, had nothing good to say about the swamp and is credited with naming it Dismal Swamp. In 1763, George Washington was a surveyor. He visited the swamp and formed the Dismal Swamp Company with plans to drain and clear it for a settlement, but that never happened either. You can visit the Great Dismal Swamp National Wildlife Refuge. There is a driving tour. There's 80 miles of hiking and biking trails, boating and fishing on the lake, and there are ancient cypress trees on the shoreline. Now we're going to move into the backcountry of North Carolina. The first area of backcountry is what we call the Piedmont now. There were lots of battles and skirmishes during the Revolutionary War in the backcountry of North Carolina, which eventually wore down the British forces. But first, we're going to go back to 1770 and see what those regulators are up to. In October of 1770, in the Fiery Cross, there are rumors of the riots in Hillsborough at the gathering at Mount Helicon. Archibald Hayes reads the governor's proclamation pertaining to the Hillsborough riots, and Claire gets a first-hand account while treating Mr. Goodwin, who had recently been in Hillsborough during the riots. In May of 1771, in the Fiery Cross, in the book, this is in the book now, you will see Tryon's actual journal entries leading up to the Battle of Alamance. It's pretty interesting. We also see Tryon's letter that was read to the regulators, telling them to lay down their weapons and giving them 1 hour to disperse per the Riot Act. And remember, Tryon had the Johnston Riot Act passed like in January, and now he's getting to use it. It's May, and he's getting to use this Riot Act just for what he wants. So this letter was read in the show also, and if you remember, it starts out, "To the people now assembled in arms who style themselves regulators," and it goes on. So since the 1750s, the backcountry farmers were victims of corrupt officials overtaxing them for years. grievances were repeatedly ignored, and this erupted into the Hillsborough riots. So for 20 years, they have been complaining and trying to go through the proper channels to get these to get this problem solved. The riots eventually culminated into the Battle of Alamance. The battle lasted about 2 hours. One regulator was hanged the day after the battle. So you remember in the show that showed 3 people being hanged after the battle. Historically, there was only one person, and I think his name was James Few. He was the only one hung. After the battle, 15 regulators were taken prisoner and paraded around the countryside for weeks by Tryon to scare the backcountry into allegiance. So basically what he did was he had these regulators in chains, and he carted them around, and he forced the backcountry farmers to sign documents that said they would swear allegiance to Britain. 6 of the 15 were found guilty and hanged in Hillsborough on June 19th, 1771. And it's worth mentioning, Jamie would not have worn a red coat as shown in the show before the battle or during the battle. The British forces under Tryon at the battle were militia, so there would have been no uniforms. They would have just been in civilian dress, everyday clothes. And Herman Husband, who was also in the books and in the show, was a historical figure. He was a Quaker. In Hillsborough, there is a walking tour of the town. The regulator marker where the 6 regulators were hanged is shown there also. There is the Old Town Cemetery, which is the original gravesite of the Declaration of Independence signer, William Hooper. There are several 18th century structures. The old Orange County courthouse stands on the corner of Churton and King Street, where the 1770 courthouse was located. The Nash Hooper Graham House. The Masonic Lodge sits on the original site of Edmund Fanning's house. So you remember who Edmund Fanning is. In the show, he took Jamie to see the men who were tarred and feathered, but there was no tarring and feathering at the riots historically that they know of. There's also William Courtney's Yellow House and the Alexander Dixon House. At Alamance Battleground, which is located south of Burlington and is 28 miles from Hillsborough. I'm trying to give y'all distances between these places because they would have gone on horseback. There is a visitor center which houses the powder horn of Harmon Cox. It is the only known surviving archaeological relic from the Battle of Alamance. On site, there's also a replica of the 3-pounder cannon, like the ones used at the battle by the British. There's the John Allen House, and John's sister Amy was the wife of Herman Husband. And the grounds at Alamance have marked key battle positions on them. Alamance Battleground will hold an event November 1st that you might be interested in. It's a program / reenactment. It's called the Colonial Assembly, and it starts at 11 and it ends at 3 with the Battleground Tour. And they usually have a German Christmas event too, so you might want to check their Facebook page for that. While in the area, you can visit the house in the Horseshoe. This is the Philip Austin House outside of Sanford, North Carolina. And you can also visit Guilford Courthouse National Military Park in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So we've made quite the journey so far, and I think we're in need of a few supplies. So we'll stop at the Moravian settlement of Salem. In the books, and I think in the show too, Salem is mentioned many times, mostly as a place to acquire supplies and trade. In the Fiery Cross, Bree tells Roger that she could make pizza if she can get sheep's cheese from Salem. And another time in the Fiery Cross, Jamie asks Claire what they can spare to take to Salem to trade. Salem was founded in 1766. The Moravians purchased 100,000 acres of land in 1753 and called it Wachovia. The Moravians also founded the early settlements of Bethabara and Bethania. Salem became the administrative center of the Wachovia tract. The Moravians, like the Quakers, were pacifists. They were neutral during the war and helped both sides with medical services and supplies. At Salem, you can walk through Old Salem and visit the shops. This is the beautiful bridge that goes from the museum to the houses and the shops, the historical part of Salem. There's the Winkler Bakery, where you might want to buy a Moravian sugar cake or love feast buns. You can also visit the Moravian Cemetery, and this is called God's Acre, and it is absolutely, it's the most amazing place. There's a visitor center and museum also, and in the museum you can see right here where there's a picture of the clay pipes and a picture of a sign that talks about an event in A Breath of Snow and Ashes, and this is when Brianna is trying to figure out how to make a water system out of clay pipes. So next, we're going to buzz on down to Charlotte. In A Breath of Snow and Ashes, Roger spends a month at the Presbyterian Academy having his qualifications for ordination examined. Later, we see Roger meeting David Caldwell, who married him and Bree in the book Drums of Autumn, and was also present at the Battle of Alamance. Caldwell tells him that there is to be a presbytery the next month in Edenton. Reverend David Caldwell was a historical figure. During the Revolutionary War, Cornwallis placed a pretty substantial bounty on Caldwell's head. In Bees, the Battle of Charlotte is mentioned, but Jamie is more concerned about Kings Mountain and Patrick Ferguson making his way up into the mountains. Charlotte was named after Queen Charlotte, King George III's wife. It's called the Queen City because of that. During the Revolutionary War, the British called it a hornet's nest of rebellion. As a result, the hornet is the city's emblem. Today, you can tour the Charlotte Museum of History. There is the 1774 Alexander Rock House, which is the oldest home in Charlotte. It's the home of Hezekiah Alexander, who was a framer of North Carolina's first Constitution and first Bill of Rights. There's also the Old Settler Cemetery, which houses the graves of the early settlers of 1768. There are several other sites near Charlotte, historic Rural Hill in Huntersville, the 1766 old stone house built by German settler Michael Brown in Granite Quarry, which is pictured on the right, the 1779 Hugh Torrance house in Huntersville. This is Fort Dobbs in Statesville. And you can also visit Ramser's Mill in Lincolnton. So we're almost home. Can you see the mountains yet? Get ready to call your clan because we're about to have a gathering to go to. The Frasers of the Ridge are here. So in the Fiery Cross, we assume that the location of the gathering, called Mount Helicon, is actually Grandfather Mountain. In the Fiery Cross, the gathering is described in great length. Around 100 pages at the beginning of the book are dedicated to the gathering. But I'm going to throw you a little curveball here. There is actually a place in North Carolina named Mount Helicon. It's a geological deposit formation in Moore County, west of Fayetteville. This would be in the upper Cape Fear region where all of the Scots settled. So it would make sense if this was really the location of the gathering. But since we like to think of Grandfather Mountain as the true site, let's talk about that. Grandfather Mountain is located in Avery County. Avery County was named after Colonel Waitstill Avery of Rowan County in the 1770s. He was a huge landowner, and you have to understand that Rowan County encompassed like a third of the state at that time. So most of western North Carolina, that area was Rowan County at the time. Today, you can tour Grandfather Mountain State Park. There's the Mile High Swinging Bridge, which I think that picture right there was taken from the bridge. There is a wildlife refuge. There are hiking trails. There's a museum. And every July, the Grandfather Mountain Highland Games, which are the largest Highland Games in the United States, takes place on Grandfather Mountain. So we finally made it to the ridge, approximately 225 miles from the coast. By horseback, which would be the fastest, it would have taken close to 2 weeks, and that's on a good horse. With a wagon, it would have taken longer, factoring in weather, road and trail conditions, and supply needs. So the burning question is, where is Fraser's Ridge? No one knows the exact location for sure, but Diana says it lies within 10 miles of Blowing Rock and Boone and covers land north of the Yadkin River. So don't think roads, think as the crow flies. So that's a really large area. In the television show, season 4, episode 3, The False Bride, Jamie and Claire see a river below Fraser's Ridge. If the show writers are staying true to Diana's specs for the location of Fraser's Ridge, this should be the Yadkin River. The Yadkin River headwaters start near Blowing Rock in Watauga County, not far from the Thunder Hill Overlook on Blue Ridge Parkway. From there, it flows southeast through Caldwell County before turning northeast and flowing through Wilkes County. So since the headwaters of the Yadkin are located near the Blue Ridge Parkway and based on Diana's description, I think it's safe to bet that Fraser's Ridge would be located east of the parkway. So Fraser's Ridge could be located in one or more of the present-day counties of Watauga, Caldwell, or Wilkes. The 10,000 acres that was granted to Jamie Fraser covers a lot of ground. So what attracted the Scots-Irish to the mountains? Well, they wanted to escape British tyranny. They settled in the mountains over the Proclamation Line, where it was hard for the British to control them there. A lot of the former regulators from the Battle of Alamance moved to the mountains and made up a large number of the Over-Mountain men. There's several places that you can visit when you're in the area. Fort Defiance, pictured here, is in Caldwell County. It is the 1792 home of William Lenore, which is basic proof that Jamie and Claire's big house could have been built. Prior to the build, it was actually a fort, which is no longer there. William Lenore was a general in the Battle of Kings Mountain in the militia under Benjamin Cleveland. He was also mentioned in Bees. Remember, Cleveland asked Jamie to join the Over-Mountain men. The Over-Mountain men actually made camp at Fort Defiance on September 28th on their march to Kings Mountain. In Boone, you'll find the Hickory Ridge History Museum and Homestead. It strives to recreate the atmosphere of a small mountain community to show the daily lives of colonial ancestors. It's made up of historic 18th and 19th century cabins originating in the high country. Horn in the West is the outdoor drama that highlights the settlers who came to the region seeking freedom and escape from British tyranny, and it runs from June to August. The next event at Hickory Ridge Museum is November 1st. It is a Veterans Day program from 10 until 2 that day. It will feature a 1780 change of command ceremony depicting when General Horatio Gates formally transferred leadership of the Southern Continental Army to Major General Nathaniel Greene. It will also feature a Continental Army encampment, living history demonstrations, and Sons of the American Revolution and Daughters of the American Revolution informational booths. In Ferguson, you can visit Whippoorwill Village and Academy. This is a collection of North Carolina cabins, one of which is Daniel Boone's Hunting Lodge. They are open the third Saturday of each month, April through October. There's also the Over-Mountain Victory National Historic Trail. It traces the route used by Patriot militia during the Kings Mountain campaign in 1780. There is a motor route along state highways, and there are 80 miles of walkable trails, and both the motor and walking routes are marked by OVTA markers. So some of you asked about what of the Scottish customs and traditions remain in North Carolina. So there are several locations for Highland Games in the state throughout the year. There is the Scottish Tartan Museum in Franklin. Elements of the Scots-Irish dialect in are still apparent in Appalachian language, and you can do a search on YouTube and find this, and it's just really amazing to listen to what the language may have been like then. Uh, Gaelic has basically disappeared. It was spoken in the Cape Fear region till the mid 19th century, but there is a resurgence of people interested in the language and learning it now. Bluegrass music has Scottish roots. You all know who Robert Burns is, right? He's the poet who wrote Freedom and Whiskey Gang Together. So there are several Robert Burns dinners statewide in January every year. Distilling is very Scottish, making moonshine. You can see that to the right. And the Presbyterian faith. The Highland Scots established the Presbyterian churches and brought the Presbyterian faith to North Carolina. So here we are at Fraser's Ridge Homecoming. And I'm going to turn this back on. So this is, we started Fraser's Ridge Homecoming in 2018, and we've had 6 homecoming events since then. We are an Outlander-inspired, history-focused event. We are the only Outlander event that focuses on North Carolina history, with the majority of the workshops that we have that have historical applications. In 2025, over 40 different workshops were offered. We had 23 vendors. We had multiple musical performing groups, including 2 18th century performing groups, the Guilford Courthouse Fife and Drums on the right, and then the Carolina Thundermugs right there on the left. We always have a large 18th century encampment. This year we had 8 different units represented with about 70 reenactors. We always have a fundraiser. This year, our fundraiser yielded $6,280, which was donated to Mission Mules and United Carolinas Cavalry to continue to assist the people in Western North Carolina. In addition, $1,100 from our ticket sales was donated to the Community Foundation of Western North Carolina Hurricane Relief Fund. And since 2018, our homecoming family has raised over $33,000 for historic sites, child welfare, animal rescue, and Hurricane Helene relief. Charles Vandervaart, pictured here, was our guest this past October, and he was also our guest in 23. He is such the most gentle person you have ever met, and you just feel like sitting him at your dining room table and making a sandwich for him and sitting down and talking to him. He's that personable. He is just so nice, and he fit in really well with us. He was a real joiner. He joined in workshops. He joined in everything that we did. So he was a lot of fun to have around. So here's where all the time travel started, with the Druids. The Druids have been performing at homecoming since 2019. So if you see these ladies dancing around a stone, you might not want to go near the stone, or maybe you do.
Wow. I know that's very profound, right? Sorry. Wow, Dawn. I'm in awe at what you know. Let me stop sharing the screen so we can get to a few questions.
Okay.
Amazing. I have not, because I've been running your slides, I have not really had a chance to look at like the questions that they've been amassing, but there were some questions that came in when people registered that I thought were good. So this is my question. What location have you been to? What Outlander, North Carolina location have you been to that really resonated with you, that like gave you the tingles or made you cry, or something that really felt very evocative?
I think now this is just for me and as a reenactor. I think when we went to Fort Johnston to Brunswick Town and had an event there. Um, just being able to cook on something that somebody cooked on in the 18th century. I mean, that was just that's kind of chilling in a way. You're in a place where some doing the same thing, basically, hopefully the same way that somebody did it, over 200 or more years ago. So, that was just a feeling at that one event. I think there are lots of places that would carry that same feeling, for different people. Tryon Palace might be that place. Morris Creek Battlefield might be, a really give you chills, thinking about the Highlanders that were there, and it was their last Highland charge ever. So, yeah.
All right, let's see here. Okay, so what is, if you were to do something that people can't miss, if they were going to come to North Carolina for a weekend and wanted to, kind of get a real sense of Outlander, what would you suggest they do? Where would they visit? Where's the most bang for the buck, so to speak?
So I would say go up and down the East Coast in North Carolina, because that's where a lot of stuff happened. The Burgwyn Wright House, they do a great Outlander tour. Hunter is great. Um, like I said, Brunswick Town. There's really nothing at Fort Johnston anymore, but you could go to New Bern to Tryon Palace. You could go to Morris Creek Battlefield, and it's all right there, kind of concentrated, where you could probably do a lot of that stuff in a weekend, and you would get a lot of concentrated Outlander feels that in a weekend. Wilmington would be another great place. You're right there on the Cape Fear, where Tryon had his first Tryon lived for a while. So yeah, it's just I would say the coast.
Yeah, that makes sense, because also there's like a pretty close proximity of things that you could kind of hit up,
Right.
fairly easily. But speaking of which, you talked a lot about the distances and such, and we had a lot of questions about the distances and how true to the geography do you think Diana was? Like, in terms of, was she realistic? I know there were a few things that were crazy, like getting from Wilmington to Cross Creek in like a day or something, which is crazy. But what do you think on other places and distances?
With the show, the show was totally unrealistic with distances and stuff. And but honestly, I cannot remember time frame. And she's very good at not wasting the reader's time about explaining, okay, well, it took 2 weeks to get from, here to here, and explaining those every day in those 2 weeks. She wanted to tell she seems like she wanted to tell the story and not bog down the story with a whole lot of travel. But you'll see like with the Battle of Alamance, you will see Tryon's journal entries day by day and how many miles they traveled each day. So you can get an idea of travel during the time by that.
Yeah. Like I said, I haven't really had a chance to look through the questions, so I'm going to ask Erin, because I know that she and Bryson.
I knew that you would be calling on me.
Well, I haven't really had much of a chance to see what people are asking about. Was there anything that kind of stood out to you question-wise, or?
Well, I was just I was typing maybe a slightly snarky comment in the chat, so I'll just say it, which is, remember, as much as we want it to be real, Outlander is a work of fiction. So we gotta give Diana a little slack, a little grace for fudging her distances and timing and stuff like that, right? So
Yeah.
we're not going to be super picky about that.
So
I'm gonna delete that in chat now.
I was also going to say too, Erin, on our website, we have like day trips from Raleigh within 2 hours. And I had some fun with that, because I figured out how long it would be on horseback.
Yeah, y'all,
From each
Heidi went a little
a little crazy.
rabbit hole into this. I'm grabbing it right now.
Yeah, I like
Into
travel, so it was very interesting. It's like an interactive map with all the Outlander locations on there that you can click on and learn about it. But I think it's fascinating. I'd love to do a tour like this myself, kind of go around the state. And Aaron and I are going to do that one day when we have nothing to do.
one day when we're not working.
Yeah.
If we can find a way to make it into to make it part of our work, that would be a thing. So a few questions, but I know that we're running up on time, and really I wanted to read a couple of the kudos and the thank yous that we've gotten in chat, because Dawn, you got one or two. People had a good time here. They said, I already wanted to visit North Carolina, but this presentation has solidified it 100%. Have to get plans in the works, which is amazing. Thank you, Dawn, for creating and giving this presentation. Very informative and enjoyable as well. Thank you to all involved in putting together this program. Well, you're welcome. Awesome presentation. This was outstanding. My favorite comment, that was bra. Yay. And you know what that means. Like, you get it. Okay. Yeah. Well done, Dawn. I enjoyed this so much. Being in Canada, I probably wouldn't have the opportunity to visit North Carolina. So this was wonderful. And then just like repeat that about 100 times. And they're still rolling in, and I can't read that as fast as I want to be able to. And then I'm going to say this one, amazing presentation. Thank you so much, Dawn, Wake County, Heidi, Aaron, and everyone, including Bryson and Rebecca, behind the scenes that organized this. Can't wait for the rest of the series.
Yes, I want to thank everyone for attending tonight. Our first night, we're a little nervous, kind of getting in the groove, but join us on Thursday night with Hunter. He's amazing. He has a podcast about Outlander and how the history intersects with the books and the show. So please join us for that. And again, Dawn, I want to thank you too, again, for all of your hard work on this. And thank you everybody for attending our first night tonight. And I am going to go ahead and end this right now. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.